every one of these trucks you get in is different. When I get a customer's truck or my truck or my wife's truck, each one of them has a different feel to it. So they're kind of hard to compare sometimes. Even going from a wagon to an open top to a hard top, or even going to a Humvee, which is a totally different experience.
It's a Dodge 2500, you know, and a Hummer has its own little quirks, and it's so funny because the quirks are so consistent that the owners don't even think of them as quirks. They'll ask when they drop a truck off, is there anything we should know about the truck? You know, anything crazy that it does and that we should know about? And most people say no. Some of the best ones of those, one of the guys' park didn't work. So he would always put the parking brake on, and he just did it without even thinking about it. But for us, that's a big deal when you go to park a truck and you put it in park and it's still rolling. But to them, it's normal. So it's how their truck behaves. It's part of its personality. I have to get to know the truck. I have to, again, find its little quirks, find its magic, what makes that truck special besides the fact that it's a beautiful machine. What makes it so special? We had our first truck for 3 years before I was able to get a suitable name for it. My first truck that was mine that George got me was super simple because as soon as I got in it, it was a gas, 383, straight pipes, loud. I would wake up the whole neighbors. And every day when I drove off to my crappy corporate job, and I was in love with her. She was my crush, so that was my girl crush, and she was the best. No, I didn't.
So the snowplow springs, they're a heavier gauge wire on them, so they support more weight. So generally what happens is you put the weight of the truck on them if you don't have a snowplow on it. They compress less than the standard springs do. So what's nice is a lot of times over standard springs, they might actually end up lifting your truck up a little bit. And then for the people who want to add a coil spacer on top, you've got the extra space to do so. Generally what happens when you put a coil spacer on top of a taller spring, you max out your shocks and you get a worse ride on the truck. With the plow springs, even though they're shorter, you can use those in a coil spacer and still have a little travel in your shock and get a little better ride than you normally would with just a regular coil spacer on top of a standard spring. One of those things, you know, growing up in the 90s when they first came out, and seeing them and just recognizing that it really was like nothing else on the road, and wanting to have something different. My first H1 was a 1997 open top, which we called the GOAT because it liked to climb mountains and hills somewhat effortlessly. And I was very lucky to get one at the time, not knowing anything about them when I got the first one, and getting a good one. So I had a great experience. It was super reliable. We took it on road trips all over the country and met some great and interesting people. I probably own more H1s than I could count at this moment, dozens literally. And even though I do buy, sell, and restore them, a lot of them I've owned and driven along the way. I'll put them on the road and actually drive them for a year or two before I sell them. In terms of my favorite one, there's been so many, but I think if I had to pick one, it was one of the few big block gas ones that AM General has made. And that one I found to be the best all-around truck as far as on-road, off-road, driving, comfort. And I really wish they would have made a few more of those. We were lucky to own that one for about 2 years before we sold it, and had a lot of great times with it. My favorite truck, like I said, was that 8.1 big block. And we picked it up from a gentleman at AM General there, very nice guy by the name of John. And not only did that truck spend 2 years with me and the folks here at Spartan, but it also spent 2 years with our beloved Arnold Schwarzenegger there, which is kind of the holy grail of Hummers, to get one that he had at one time. It was just a super cool and fun truck. Ultimately, yellow isn't my thing. It's a little attention getting, and even though Hummers do get attention, that one got a lot of attention.
Him and Rebecca were there. I pulled them off of their working on a truck, and I just bought one, and they kind of laughed at me. I was like, okay, well, I was just so glad, that they decided that I could build a relationship with them to where they would work on my truck in any condition that it came in. They're willing to work on it. When I'm driving,
Yeah.
I can use the GPS and stuff on it. But then if I'm busy driving, I can swing it to the other side and let my passenger work on it. It just goes.
Dude, that's awesome.
It goes over the top. So when they start rotting out in the center there, generally what's happening is
They're run from underneath.
And there's-
and that's
like I said, I did this one because I own this roof and I had to do it. It's so much work because yours is outside of that seam. So I think you're going to be lucky when that one to. If you had to do this, I would say don't even bother because it's that bad when that happened. But this is a truck that was left outside for years.
I was awestruck by them before I drove one, but our second trip to Moab, doing the off-road trails, George, it was our second or third, I think it was my second, George's third. He was bored. He's like, why don't you drive? I was a little panicked at first, but when I was able to take that truck and climb a rock the size of some people's homes, it was pretty amazing. And to do it with a stock truck while everybody else was doing it with totally decked out modified trucks was, again, pretty amazing. So I was hooked at that point forever.
So when we were looking for a business name, our main goal was to try and find something that no one else had used. And we kept coming back to Spartan because of the integrity of the Spartan soldiers. And as most of you know, my Greek American heritage also played a part in that. The business was more of a hobby. So I had retired from my banking career after the market had crashed, and there really wasn't a lot of jobs in that sector anymore, at least not any that paid very well. So I thought it'd be good to take an early retirement and pursue my passion, which was these trucks, and just kind of hanging out and working on them. And didn't really have the intention of turning it into a business until we were contacted by Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department asking if we would work on their Humvees. What was nice, the other local sheriff's departments kind of followed. We ended up doing a lot of work for Pasco County, which is the county north of us, and still do, and work with Nellis County, which is our local county here. And so it was law enforcement that actually got us to turn this into a business.
crazy. Holy shit. Whose truck is this? Doesn't take care of it. It's Ben. That's Ben's truck. Cut it here, and then we put some piece here at the bottom, attached to this well to this flat piece.
And just
Cover it. You know what I'm saying?
Cover,
Yeah. The top there.
That way you don't get some sticking through the oil. All right, you want a grinder, or you want to do it when you get home, or you want to do it now? Or you have a grinder, okay.
I was in finance for the majority of my life and corporate America, all aspects of the banking world, IT, a little bit of process improvement towards the end, lending, the whole 9 yards. And I had spent my weekends working on the trucks. As I grew up, before all of this, my dad was a mechanic in Navy. He was a machinist mate. And it was a requirement if you were going to have a vehicle that you knew how to take care of the vehicle. Otherwise, if you can't perform basic maintenance, you don't deserve to drive it. So that's how I started with that. And then on the weekends, like I said, George and I both had really crazy schedules. So in order to spend time together, we were either working on our motorcycles or the truck. I had taken some time off of work for some medical issues, and while I was out, my position was eliminated, and I ended up with this full time. The phone call when they called me was supposed to be 3 days before I was going back to work after my medical leave. It was on my birthday that they called. And they went through the whole spiel about how the job was no longer there and I was welcome to apply for any other jobs if I wanted to. And then HR is like, do you have any questions? And I'm like, yeah, do you have my folder there? I mean, is it normal for you guys to like let people go on their birthday? And there was just silence. So I felt a little bit of redemption. Luckily, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So, best birthday present ever.
People who work here and work on these trucks also own and operate these trucks. So when we get in a truck, we can tell right away if something isn't exactly where it's supposed to be, or if something doesn't sound right, or something's squeaking that's not supposed to be squeaking. And also because we've had so many of them and owned so many of them over the years, we know the differences between all the different year models and makes. And there's not really one year that didn't go by that something hadn't been changed on these trucks, sometimes major, sometimes minor. And just being able to do something like even going into this door and knowing that that's not a factory bolt there, you know, and I know that should be a Phillips, and this here too, knowing that, you know, this wasn't from the factory, and you know, this would have been glued on from the factory and things like that. So when we put it back together, we're going to put it back the way that it should be. But knowing any part of your truck that we get into, we're absolutely able to know exactly what should be there, what shouldn't be there, and how it should be. This is the tricky part, is trying to stuff 10 pounds of bologna in a 5-pound sack, so to speak. If you've ever heard that saying before.
I just did.
Okay. It seems like it's gonna be more GM-esque than Hummer-esque, so it's kind of disappointing to some of us H1 diehard owners. I think it'll add awareness to where it may not exist right now, especially with some of the younger people who are really into the EVs. And of course, when they start researching that, and then I think they kind of know about the Hummer brand, but don't know much about it. And you know, with all the information available on the internet at everyone's fingertips at 24/7, I think it's only inevitable that they're going to want to look into the history and see what it was. Even for some of these kids who are driving now, who weren't even alive when these things came out, you know, who, you know, to them, this is a classic car. You know what I mean? To us, it's just a used truck, really. But I think you'll probably find some of them will start looking into it and then say, you know what, I want the original one. I think that's going to be cool to have.
something.
that time.
Sorry, again, you might need to edit this.
No, it's all on film.
But you're gonna edit this.
It's for historic record.
So that time.
edits anymore.
It's just wrong.
Rev it.
Maybe just like twice.
Are you on hold?
25 minutes on hold, and then they said, we can't complete your call. Please hang up and call again.
Except for the fact my drugs are sitting right in the picture.
You what?
My drugs are sitting. Yeah, one day some cop's gonna hear that and be like, do you have a knife so I can just check that?
Is that just a weight for your tripod?
I use it with. It's actually I use it. It's homemade weights.
Well, obviously it's homemade. Really?
Homemade.
Never happens.
Let me get close up.
Yeah. I'll probably just go ahead and grease the tracks.
Do it again.
anyway.
Do it again.
And this is with the truck off, so with the truck on, it's just going to go faster than that. Well, I think that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. All right. Tighten everything up.
One more time.
One more time.
For camera.
Going down.
What is it? The bolts that hold the center ring. One's gone. The other one's barely on.
And that's your leak.
If that had come off, it would have destroyed everything under.
This was probably easier before somebody bent this cable to crap and back.
That's okay.
I don't have the safety cable on yet.
I'm pretty braggy, guys.
I'm not familiar.
No.
It's like
What'd you do?
I don't know what it is.
I need some face hair. Oh, that's such a good shot. Strike pose. I'm done. Okay, camera. Look into the distance. There you go.